right, settle down. Everyone settle down. Everyone settle down. Ugh. I see you all brought your headphones and your IC cards. It's always nice to see a class prepared. My name is Jack. I'll be your instructor. This is Rhythm Games 101. If you are looking for that, you're in the right place. We'll be covering history, equipment, versions, maybe even how to get better at the games that you're playing. So I think we can just get started. If everyone's read the syllabus already, then we can get started with our first lesson, which is Taiko no Tatsujin. Amongst the variety of rhythm games available, many different interfaces, control schemes, and themes have been explored. The idea of playing an instrument in a rhythm game makes a lot of intuitive sense and has been seen throughout the genre. Guitars and drum sets are certainly common, as well as more production-focused interfaces akin to DJ gear as seen in Beatmania 2DX and DJ Hero. However, today's game uses an instrument most people outside of Japan have probably never even seen in their life, a taiko drum. Taiko no Tatsujin, or Taiko Drum Master in English, is a rhythm game where you play a Japanese nagaro daiko to the music, whether that be to popular songs from anime or the game's well-known original songs. The game is almost as old as the oldest rhythm games in the genre, with the first release in Japanese arcades all the way back in 2001. The original version of the game contained 25 songs and 3 difficulties, Kantan, Futsu, and Muzukashi, or easy, normal, and hard. It was then released for home play in Japan in 2002 under the same name. This introduced the concept of the home drum for taiko, also known as a tatakon. This is a small plastic drum meant to mimic the control scheme of the arcade version of the game, though the game can also be played with a traditional controller as well. This home version of the series also began referring to the hardest difficulty of the game as Oni, paving the way for many brutally difficult songs for years to come. As the game gained popularity and new versions released, Taiko would make its way stateside for the first time in 2004 as Taiko Drum Master. The US release performed poorly, with only about 4,000 lifetime sales. For comparison, Namco worked on Donkey Konga for the GameCube the year before, and by comparison, that sold 61,000 copies in the first week. Due to the lack of popularity of the official English release of Taiko, the game was left unsupported in the West, but would develop a cult following that would persist all the way up until the drought was ended with the US PS4 release of Taiko no Tatsujin Drum Session in 2018. Despite being over 20 years old, aside from a few non-standard note types here and there, Taiko's gameplay has remained roughly the same throughout the entire franchise, never really seeing any major reworks. The game is played on the aforementioned Taiko drum controller on arcade, or on Tatakon or controller at home. The arcade-sized drum is large and features a nice rubber finish to the face, using vibration sensors to detect hits, while the Tatakon is a cheaper plastic material, uses thin flex sensors, and is also much smaller, though this makes it good for travel or for kids to use. The main gameplay of Taiko concerns 2 notes of differing colors, don notes and ka notes. Don notes are red and require the player to hit the center of the drum. Ka notes are blue and require the player to hit the outside edge of the drum. Taiko drums are divided through the middle to allow for 2 inputs of each, 2 ka inputs on the outside edge of the drum, and 2 don inputs on the inside of the drum. The actual positions of the sensors on the drum can vary depending on which drum you use, so a good rule of thumb is to aim for the top half of the drum. There are other notes like drum rolls and balloons, requiring the player to hit the drum very quickly, as well as big don and ka notes, which reward the player with extra score if they hit both dons or kas at the same time on console. On arcade, however, big don and ka notes have become trivial, as the requirement for hitting a big note is simply hitting the drum harder. But most arcade operators set the big notes to simply require the normal amount of force as every other note. But other than that, the bulk of the charts in Taiko are simply made up of mostly single don and ka inputs, arranged in different patterns to create difficulty and follow certain parts of the music. In that way, Taiko is a very conceptually simple game with its own set of challenges. The mascot of Taiko is Don-chan, the red-faced taiko drum, also representing the game's don note. There is also Katsu-chan, his brother, representing the ka note. The game features a wide cast of other characters as well, who often appear in the game's backgrounds or story mode content. Taiko is a game known for its heavy music variety. Sorted into categories, the game certainly contains your usual music game affair of EDM and the like, but Taiko goes far beyond that as well. It features classical music, music from anime, music from other video games, its own Toho category, and even its own series of music to help the game define itself, like the strange 2000 series of songs. The game is known for having a very large amount of music and a very dense variety of genres. There's really something for everyone in Taiko in terms of music. Now when it comes to playing Taiko, you have a few different ways to do it, so let's take a look at controllers. In terms of playing at home, outside of playing with a gamepad or a keyboard depending on the version you play, your main options are either going with a Tatakon or a premium drum. Tatakons are official controllers and are designed for home play, and are manufactured in higher volumes by Hori. That said, they are a lot cheaper and don't perform well sometimes. They use plastic drumsticks, and the Tatakons themselves are quite small and light, making them sometimes difficult to set up and secure. The plastic drumsticks also don't allow for certain techniques like rolling for drum rolls. If you're on a small budget and are okay knowing you won't get a perfect experience, Tatakons can be a practical option, and some players have great success with them. If you want to go for a more premium or arcade accurate experience, you can go for a premium drum. Premium drums usually have an arcade accurate drum face size, as well as being made out of the same or similar material that the arcade drums use. In addition, they support the use of maibachi, drumsticks built for use on a taiko drum that allow for a better feel and certain techniques involving bouncing the drumstick off the drum more intentionally. There are a few of these out there these days, but the most common and popular ones are the Taikoler from Gemo 2 and the Taiko Force, the original premium AC drum. These are certainly not essential to gameplay, but will help to enhance your experience if you're looking for that arcade accurate feel. Once you've decided on drum, you'll have to pick a version. As far as home versions go, the home availability of Taiko has improved a lot in general over the past few years. In the 2020s, Taiko did return to the West officially, and the most current version is Taiko no Tatsujin Rhythm Festival. The biggest draw of Rhythm Festival is the massive amount of songs available in the game via the Taiko Music Pass. Music Pass is a small monthly fee that gives you access to over 500 DLC songs not packaged in the base game. I know some people will be hesitant to pay for a subscription, but compared to arcade credit costs, the Music Pass is an absolute steal and a super good value for the amount of content you get, making Rhythm Festival the easiest and best way to get into Taiko and play loads of content. If you're lucky enough to be near a cabinet, you can play the arcade version of Taiko. There are many different versions, so depending on where you are, it might not be the most recent version, but the current arcade version in most places is the version unofficially known as Nijiro, which came with an upgrade/conversion of the cabinets from 2011. These cabinets have significantly better hardware, including a 120Hz monitor for much smoother visuals in gameplay. Otherwise, there's also a new version of the software as well, though as stated previously, Taiko doesn't change too much from version to version. It mostly just adds new songs, visuals, etc. Taiko supports Banapass cards for saving your data, so if you're near an online machine, make sure to pick one up to save your scores. Now, of note on these 2 points is that this month, the availability of Taiko in the West is about to become better than it ever has been, with 2 major events. First of all, Bamco has announced their intention to release the current version of Taiko Arcade localized in the West with all features for the first time ever. An absolutely massive announcement for not only fans of Taiko, but also any rhythm game, as official Western support for most games is sparse. After the successful location test earlier in the year, there are plans to roll this out to limited arcades in 2024, and presumably more locations in 2025. So hopefully the availability of Taiko arcade machines in the US will only increase from here. Additionally, by the time you're watching this, Rhythm Festival will be releasing on Steam. This gives the Steam user base their first crack at Taiko and should likely reach a larger audience than the Xbox/PC release of Taiko no Tatsujin the Drum Master from back in 2021. Needless to say, Taiko is about to have its next big crack at the Western market, so right now is definitely the time to find a machine or get a drum at home and give Taiko a try. Now, Taiko is a game loaded with beginner-friendly content, and it also seems quite popular with casual players and even people who don't often play rhythm games. It's not uncommon at an arcade or at an event to see a line of like 5+ pairs of people patiently waiting to play Taiko. It clearly has some sort of draw to casual players, whether it's the music, the characters, or the simplistic control interface. However, that does not mean that Taiko is an easy game. To be honest, Taiko could reasonably be called one of the more difficult rhythm games you could play. The highest levels of the game reach insane levels of density, complexity, rhythms, and gimmicks that will leave you on the floor. So if you want to go beyond that casual level of gameplay, this chapter is for you. While Taiko is generally a simple game with a low amount of inputs and note types, the complexity offered by the higher end of the game is certainly not low level. The first and most obvious tip for getting better is going to be playing the game a lot and getting used to how the game plays and how the drum feels. This goes for pretty much any rhythm game, but you're just going to have to get used to the way the game plays and how it is to read a chart. Just pick songs you like and have fun. As you start to get up to Muzukashi and Oni charts, you're going to notice that the complexity and density of patterns increases a lot. It's a simple game, so Taiko relies heavily on rhythms and note density to create difficulty. At this point, a good way to work on progressing is to learn the basic 3-note patterns, basically all 8 configurations of 3 notes that the game can throw at you. This is a common strategy of learning how to parse denser sections of Taiko charts, by breaking patterns into smaller, more readable pieces. This is actually common practice in most rhythm games, but Taiko can be a bit less intuitive in that regard. Once you've mastered these patterns, it's also a good idea to start grinding out some 5-note patterns as well. By learning them and building muscle memory, you'll have a huge advantage when learning new charts. So don't be intimidated, just work on learning simpler patterns and breaking more complex ones down. After you pick up the basics and play the game for a while, it's a good idea to start paying attention to star rating. Star rating is the difficulty of a chart, and each difficulty has its own star rating scale, so a 7-star Muzukashi does not equal a 7-star Oni. With this in mind, as you start to break into Oni, you need to search for songs with a lower star rating than you were playing on Muzukashi or lower difficulties. You'll begin to see all the basics you learned from hard, but now at a faster pace, with the addition of Oni difficulty having a smaller good hit timing window. At around this point in progression, it's also a good idea to learn hand switching, and to try to be conscious of it. Hitting every note with your dominant hand is a good way to get overwhelmed at higher levels, so it's best practice to learn how to properly switch hands to handle density. Fully alternating is common for playing high density content, wherein the player switches which hand they're hitting the drum with on every single note. This will allow you to handle patterns of basically any density in the long run, and hitting patterns with fully alternating hands can be very satisfying. When learning to handle denser patterns, some players opt to practice the alternation to the beat of a metronome. Initially, they play the pattern at a low BPM, which allows them to get a feel for how the hand switching should be executed. Then they speed it up in small increments, making sure to nail down the pattern each time. Eventually, they'll be able to master the fully alternating pattern at the high speed required for playing the chart for real. There are also other techniques you can learn to help with other aspects of gameplay, such as the double stroke, which really helps for hitting extremely high density patterns with one hand, or for really racking up hits on roll notes. Some techniques like this are only doable on AC or premium drums, but they can be worth looking into if you're looking to take your gameplay to the next level. Taiko is a game that has proven time and time again over the years to be a popular mainstay of the rhythm game genre, appealing heavily to casual and hardcore players alike. Throughout the game's history, it hasn't really had much chance in the West, but has always had a cult following here among those with interest in Japanese video games and rhythm games. With the release of Taiko on Steam and the distribution of Taiko machines beginning in the West, Taiko is getting another real shot at the Western market, so now is a great time to tap in and play. Alright, I think that's about it for today's lesson. Your homework assignment for next week is an essay on the deep subliminal messaging present in the 2000 series of songs. I'll need that and your best drawing of Don-chan on my desk by Monday. If no one else has any other questions? No? Alright. Class dismissed.